On behalf of the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, I'm happy to welcome everyone today to today's Forward Motion webinar, where we're asking and answering the big question, how much should I pay? Forward Motion is the title of our stakeholder call series, where we, along with our partners, provide members and stakeholders with the most current and relevant resources to support you to be successful at the pace at which you're ready. We'll start with the important step of reflecting on and acknowledging the land that we're on. So the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario and Indigenous Tourism Ontario recognize that all of our work and the work of our community partners takes place on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, and the Haudenosaunee. We acknowledge and respect that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory we now call Ontario. We acknowledge and embrace that all Ontarians are treaty people. Tayo is thankful for the original hosts who welcomed visitors to work, live, and benefit in these territories. We're thankful for the Anishinaabe, Cree, and Haudenosaunee peoples who have cared for these territories for thousands of years. And we're thankful for the Indigenous communities who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario. So today's speaker is Evan Hazenberg. He is the Director of Labour Market Intelligence for Tourism HR Canada. He's lived and worked in Canada, Japan, New Zealand, and the UK. And before joining THRC, he was a lecturer for 5 years in the School of Media Arts and Humanities at the University of Sussex in England. And now I'll turn it over to Evan.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen, which is always a slightly awkward transition, but hopefully you are able to see my slide. Can someone just confirm that you can in fact see the slides?
Looks good, Evan.
All right, thank you very much. So hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Evan Hazenberg and I'm the Director of Labour Market Intelligence here at Tourism HR Canada, and I'm very pleased to be hosting this webinar. Today's topic is, how much should I pay? This is the third webinar in a series called Building a Resilient and Vibrant Workforce. The series is brought to you by Tourism HR Canada's Discover Tourism initiative, which I'll talk about in a minute, in partnership with the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, or TIO. As you know, Tourism HR Canada is a national organization that's dedicated to helping our sector build a resilient, competitive, and inclusive workforce. Our partners at TIO represent tourism businesses and employees across the province. TIO advocates on behalf of their members on urgent policy issues that impact Ontario's tourism industry. In this series, we're presenting webinars on topics like hiring international talent, attracting, developing, and retaining an Indigenous workforce, and building a blended workforce. Every webinar is packed full of relevant information that's geared towards tourism business operators like yourselves. By the end of each session, you'll have a variety of practical tools and resources that you'll be able to use in your business right away. The webinars are recorded and the presentations are posted on the TIO website, so you can access them at any time. The recording of today's webinar will be uploaded to their website later this week. Before diving into today's topic, I would like to thank the Government of Canada for providing the support and funding that's made it possible to develop this webinar series. So today we're going to talk about compensation, which can be a real balancing act, especially in today's tight labor market. We'll review some important compensation best practices. We'll discuss why compensation adds up to more than simply dollars and cents. And we'll explore how you can revamp your compensation package to make your business more attractive to potential workers, all without breaking the bank. After the presentation, we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes for a Q&A session. So please drop your questions into the chat for discussion. And those questions will be moderated by Lenny, who is acting as our host. Throughout the webinar, I'll be sharing some links for more information and resources, and those will be in the deck itself, which you can download afterwards. And these links are to more information and resources. And at the end, I will also invite you to our next webinar on attracting and retaining Indigenous talent. So we've got a lot of great information to share with you. So let's get started. Canada's labour market is the tightest it's been in 50 years. Employers are desperate to hire workers, and this is impacting decisions on what they should or need to pay employees. Businesses that offer competitive wages, good working conditions, flexible scheduling, and tailored benefits are more able to attract and retain talent. The challenge for tourism business operators is to offer a competitive wage as well as benefits or perks that prospective employees want. And some benefits and perks are considered standard in the industry, but employers can get creative and offer a variety of industry-specific or intangible perks and benefits to make their compensation package even more attractive. But before I get ahead of myself, let's turn our attention to the compensation package you have in place. How do you know if it's competitive? Tourism HR Canada recently completed a tourism sector compensation study, which surveyed tourism employers across Canada. We looked at selected occupations across 4 of the sector's industry groups. The report and the accompanying dashboard provide current data on wage rates by region and industry, as well as useful information on HR practices and policies, on salary administration practices, like the use of gratuities, bonuses, and incentives, in addition to benefit programs and working arrangements. Tourism HR Canada has produced several compensation studies since 2006. The last one was released in 2019, just before the pandemic came into the global picture. Last year, we released another survey to gain an understanding of how tourism business operators were thinking about compensation within the context of COVID-19 recovery and the ongoing labor challenges that are affecting our sector. We invited all kinds of businesses to take part, from small family-run businesses to large multi-location companies, to get a comprehensive view of the sector as a whole. We also conducted interviews between December 2022 and February 2023. This new data is fascinating in allowing us to compare where we were in 2019 and where we are today. A lot has changed, but you might be surprised to find out that a lot has stayed the same despite the upheavals of the pandemic. Before getting into numbers, I should note that the 2019 compensation study included a wider range of occupations and had a larger pool of survey respondents. This means that there's more data and therefore more detail available in the 2019 study as compared to the 2023 study. And although the 2023 study had fewer survey respondents, we expanded our research model to include semi-structured one-on-one interviews with employers from across Canada. This new qualitative view has produced insights that build on the quantitative or statistical data from the surveys. In 2019, tourism business operators were feeling very optimistic. It was another record-breaking year with over 21 million tourists visiting Canada from around the world. Demand for tourism was high and trending upward. Nearly a quarter of the businesses expected that they would need to increase hiring to meet that demand. Even though the general feeling was positive, tourism operators also experienced external pressures, especially those arising out of minimum wage increases. And these affected how tourism businesses operated. As you probably remember, in 2018, most provinces and territories increased the minimum wage. Some employers tried to offset this effect of the increase by raising their prices and reducing business hours. A smaller proportion of businesses had to lay off staff. However, there were many employers located in provinces and territories that experienced this minimum wage increase who reported that they were able to absorb the cost with little or no difficulty. Some even managed to raise employee salaries to a wage higher than the new minimum wage. There was no one-size-fits-all solution here, just as there isn't now. But it's important to remember that every business adapted its practices in whatever way made the most sense for their specific situation. In the current study, businesses reported that they were facing massive operational and financial challenges. These challenges include the ongoing impact of COVID-19, such as paying back loans and experiencing inconsistent demand for their services, as well as the constant struggle to find enough staff to stay afloat, let alone to thrive and grow. As many of you know firsthand, external pressures today include a generally disheartening economic outlook that's coupled with inflation and an overall increase in tourism demand. Tourism business operators today are faced with higher operating costs due to inflationary and supply chain issues, which can add up to reduced profits. They're struggling to compete in the marketplace and must make changes to boost efficiency and reduce cost at the operational level, which often lowers the service qualities that tourists are expecting. And the employees that tourism businesses have managed to retain throughout the pandemic are often burning out, and service standards are starting to dip. Because of inflation and the competitive labor market we're in right now, salaries and hourly wages in 2023 are both higher than they were in 2019. The highest paid roles today are those of managers, cooks, and program leaders in recreation, sport, and fitness. In 2019, the highest paid roles were those of directors and managers, executive chefs, and sous chefs. The lowest paid roles in 2019 were those of food counter attendants, heritage interpreters, hosts and hostesses, housekeeping room attendants, kitchen helpers, sales clerks, and bartenders and servers. In 2023, the data shows that servers and bartenders are still among the lowest paid roles, in addition to light duty cleaners and seasonal guides. Of course, many tourism businesses offer their employees more than just a wage. The total compensation package offered within tourism jobs can include gratuity sharing, benefits, perks, and other incentives. Both compensation studies found that people working in full-time jobs were more likely to be offered benefits than people working in part-time jobs. The most common benefits in 2019 and 2023 were group health and dental insurance, and to a slightly lesser degree, short-term disability benefits. In 2019, we also saw a lot of life insurance offerings, while other top benefits in 2023 include paid vacation days and parental leave. Finally, the most common perks in 2019 were employee discounts, free services, and to a lesser extent, flex time and communication technologies like mobile phones. In 2023, common perks also included employee discounts in addition to flex time and familiarization tours and exercises. Now, this is just a quick snapshot of the information available in the compensation study. If you'd like to dig a little deeper, we invite you to explore our compensation webpage, which you can find on the Tourism HR Canada website under the Labour Market Information tab, or by following this QR code. You'll find the 2023 survey findings, as well as an archived copy of the 2019 report if you're curious about recent changes. If you sign up to the Tourism HR Insider, you'll hear about the interview report as well when it becomes available. Now that we have a broad idea of how the tourism landscape has changed over the past 4 years, let's talk a bit about our current context. We all experienced devastating impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic had on our sector. Tourism was disproportionately affected by travel restrictions, business closures, and other public health measures put in place to stop the spread of the virus. Tourism business operators had to introduce new policies and procedures to keep guests and staff safe. Many employers were forced to reduce their hours or close temporarily or even permanently. Some employers had to make the difficult decision to lay off some or all of their staff. And now many tourism operators who lost their jobs during the pandemic have found work in other sectors or have left the labor force altogether. According to Tourism HR Canada's research, we currently need about 200,000 workers to return to pre-COVID levels of employment. And with the added demands over summer, there's an estimated need for an additional 150,000 workers. But a significant challenge to reaching that goal is that tourism isn't the only sector desperate for employees. Businesses across Canada are struggling to fill jobs. By the end of 2023, it is projected that Canada will be short 2.3 million workers, and that our domestic labor supply will fail to meet demand across all sectors in the next 10 years. So this has created a very tight labor market, and tourism employers are competing with employers in other sectors. As well, the labor shortage means tourism businesses are juggling higher operating costs and reduced profits. Many are struggling to make ends meet, so they are unable to hire the full complement of workers they need to provide the unforgettable experiences that tourists dream of when they visit Canada. To make things even more challenging, the flow of tourism is sporadic and less predictable now than it was before the pandemic. This exacerbates uncertainty with respect to cash flow and makes it harder for employers to offer their staff regular or guaranteed hours. On top of everything, this new era has unveiled a mismatch in the skills employees have and the skills they need to succeed in the tourism workplace. For instance, there are new operational procedures that have been put in place due to the pandemic, and I'm sure we're all familiar with some of those. As well, emerging customer experience trends, things like an increased demand for self-service, at the same time as increased relationship building and virtual experiences, mean employees need to learn a whole new set of skills. There are the candidates who've been out of the workforce for an extended period of time and return to their jobs to find that they have outdated skills. They are no longer they no longer have the skills that apply to the kinds of work they're now expected to do. So on top of brushing up on their existing skill set, those workers also must learn the new policies and procedures that have been introduced to ensure safety and to enhance customer experience. Taken together, these factors of unpredictable demand, new skills gaps, emerging customer experience trends, and fierce competition for workers have forced employers to increase their staff numbers gradually, and in many cases at a much slower pace than they'd like. And with a smaller labor pool to choose from, many employers find themselves hiring unqualified candidates or candidates that are a poor fit for their workplace. This approach can backfire, though, and increase turnover, as unqualified employees may feel unprepared or overwhelmed for their duties and will seek employment elsewhere. Others may find the workplace culture less appealing due to the workers who are a bad fit and quit in favor of a more welcoming culture. So now, instead of having a well-rounded workforce, employers who hire indiscriminately are faced with additional costs around recruitment and training expenses. We know that national and international visitors are returning and that the labor force is not bouncing back. Tourism businesses across Canada are having to do more with less just to stay afloat. This is a very difficult position to be in, especially after the stresses of the pandemic. But tourism is an attractive industry for many reasons. There's a wide variety of jobs with opportunities to grow. Employees get to meet people from all around the world and learn important customer service and teamwork skills. There are opportunities for people in all stages of their lives. As employers, when trying to attract and retain workers, we need to lean into what makes tourism great and tailor our message to our audience. Now, I don't want to take away from the main topic today, but this is a chance to mention Discover Tourism, a new attraction and retention campaign. Discover Tourism has something for job seekers, for employers, and for others who are mediators around employment. And it builds an understanding of the job and career possibilities and opportunities in tourism, the meaningful work, enriching experiences, and the freedom to pursue interests that are unique to this sector. We encourage you to explore the Discover Tourism site and its resources. You might find something there that can help your own recruitment and retention strategies. This QR code will take you there directly, or you can visit it at discovertourism.ca. But back to the topic of compensation. It's important to have a compensation package that supports your hiring objectives, especially in this competitive labor market and possible looming recession. Remember that compensation is more than just a salary or hourly wage. It can include tips, incentives, and bonuses, in addition to benefits and perks that complement a paycheck. When thinking about your compensation package, it's helpful to benchmark your practices against others to make sure your business is competitive in the local market. You don't want to base all of your decisions on who's paying what, but this information will provide a useful baseline to build an attractive package. Tourism HR Canada recently launched a useful dashboard that you can use to look at compensation practices by province and territory, which is powered by the compensation survey study data. You can search by salary or hourly compensation by region. When you select annual compensation or hourly compensation, you'll be prompted to select the position type, full-time, part-time, or seasonal, and the occupation you'd like to search for. You can have the results displayed as a map, a table, or a comparison table that looks at two occupations or two regions side by side. There's national data available as well, and some provincial or regional data, although because of the size of the study, we can't offer comprehensive coast-to-coast coverage at this time. In addition to searching for salaries and hourly rates, you can also use the dashboard to find information about other benefits and incentives and how various businesses take gratuities into consideration when deciding on compensation. So I encourage you to visit the dashboard on the Tourism HR Canada website and experiment with it a little bit to see what other employers in your region or industry are offering workers. This data is an important piece of the compensation puzzle, but answering the question, what are other people in my region paying, is just a starting point. From there, ask yourself what you can realistically offer your employees above and beyond their basic pay. Consider why potential workers should want to work for you. Because the thing is, dollars and cents matter, but compensation is so much more than that, especially for smaller businesses that perhaps can't afford to pay an additional $3 an hour. but they may be able to add attractive perks and incentives to their compensation package that will make themselves a much more desirable employer. So this is the link to the compensation page again, where you can access the dashboard and play around for yourself. And I encourage you to have a little poke. So let's turn our attention to total compensation. So total compensation refers to the total amount of wages, benefits, and perks that an employer offers to an employee in exchange for their work. This includes the employee's base salary or their wages, as well as any bonuses, commissions, or profit sharing payments they may be eligible for. An additional total compensation includes benefits like health insurance, retirement contributions, paid time off, and other perks or incentives that an employer may offer. When setting a base salary or hourly rate, be sure that the wages are fair, equitable, and competitive. Wherever possible, Tourism HR Canada recommends paying workers a living wage instead of a minimum wage. While this may cost more upfront, paying a living wage ensures workers can meet their basic needs like housing, food, and utilities. And this enables employees to focus on their work without worrying about how to make ends meet. The benefit to you as a business operator is that paying a living wage can reduce turnover rates, increase employee loyalty, and attract more qualified job candidates. Ultimately, it can lead to higher profits for your business and help you build a reputation as a good employer in your community. And in a tight labor market, that is a very valuable resource. Now, the living wage will vary depending on where you're located, because the cost of living varies greatly by location, and employees living in more expensive areas will need higher wages to cover their living expenses. So you will need to do some investigating on your own on what the current living wage in your city or region is before you make any decisions. This is also a great opportunity to brainstorm perks, like offering on-site accommodations if you can, employee meals, and subsidies that could help pay for public transportation or gas money for your employees. Take your employees' skills and experience into consideration when making compensation decisions. Make sure that employees with similar positions or skill sets are compensated in a similar way. For example, let's say you run an event planning business and have 2 assistants on staff. If your assistants perform the same types of tasks, have similar responsibilities, and work the same number of hours every week, they should be paid similar wages. If you offer annual wage increases, then there may be discrepancies between employees depending on how long they've been with you, but those wage increases should be similar across the board and should be fairly transparent. Finally, you may need to consider how your business will handle tips. Will they go directly from the guest to the employee, or will you implement a tip sharing program? Total compensation is good for both employers and employees. As a business operator, thinking about direct and indirect compensation empowers you to attract and retain top talent. You may even realize that you have a lot more to offer than you thought. Adopting a total compensation approach is also good for employees because it means that they are adequately compensated for their work and they understand what that compensation consists of. Another word for total compensation that some businesses prefer is value proposition. This term recognizes that businesses need to play an active role in retaining and attracting talent. And the word value can also encompass values such as commitment to sustainability or diversity, as well as economic value. Operators need to build a compensation package that appeals to the target demographics that they want to hire. And money is a part of it. Of course, the total compensation includes the base pay, but what else? At McDonald's, employees are offered access to training, experience, and skills development that pave the way to a career. The company is offering more than just a job. They offer flexible working hours as well as a safe, respectful, and inclusive working environment. Their total compensation package, or their value proposition, includes competitive starting rates with benefits and perks that include employee discounts, scholarships, and incentives. They recognize and reward hard work with initiatives like the Employee of the Month award. McDonald's is a good example of a company that understands who its workers are and what they want. No matter the size of your business, you can offer many similar perks as McDonald's, like flexible working hours, an inclusive working environment, and recognition of a job well done. The most important thing is to be intentional about what you offer and to consider who you want to attract. Find out what motivates your target recruitment demographic and introduce perks and benefits that align with motivations. Here, it's useful to talk to young people on your team or in your life to get a sense of their motivations. Because there's this pervasive myth out there that young people don't want to work, but that's not really true. Youth do want to work. They're just not motivated by the same things that some hiring managers think should motivate them. Young people are coming into the workforce at a very uncertain time. They're thinking about climate change, geopolitical conflict, and a global economic landscape that is shifting rapidly and unpredictably. They're deeply concerned about sustainability and social responsibility. So if you're hiring a dishwasher for your restaurant and your job ad only lists the role, responsibilities, and hourly pay, you might not attract many candidates. But let's say your restaurant teams up with a local nonprofit organization and donates leftover food at the end of each day. This is an interesting and attractive benefit that you can add to your job ad. It allows you to talk about how donating food helps to combat food waste, reduces pollution, and helps support the community. Maybe washing dishes isn't very motivating on its own, but washing dishes for a restaurant that supports the vulnerable people in your community can help meet prospective workers' needs to work for a caring employer. It doesn't add to your bottom line as an operator, and the positive impact of this one action can have a ripple effect in your workplace culture. The job shifts from just being a dishwasher to being part of a team that is combating inequality. You've added value without adding cost. This is just one example, and it's important to keep in mind that different demographics have different motivations and values. If you want to create an attractive compensation package, you need to customize it to your ideal candidates and the specifics of your business situation. When we conducted the compensation study in 2023, the interviews covered a number of recurrent themes and trends from tourism sector employers across the country. Lots of respondents talked about building a team atmosphere at work. For example, starting a tip sharing program at a restaurant so kitchen staff are rewarded for their work as well as servers. We saw sharing responsibilities in the workplace, cross-training for all employees, and examples of leaders and supervisors rolling up their sleeves and doing everything from working the front desk to cleaning washrooms. Along the same lines, there was a recurring idea of building a community, making work a fun place to be. Some respondents said they held social events, they've created awards for their employees, and they hold informal meetings with staff to talk about how they're doing, what their goals are, and what they want to learn on the job and outside of the job. Others were active in their communities, sponsoring sports teams and taking part in fundraising activities. Another common theme was investing in training and health and wellness benefits. There was an increased awareness of mental health issues in particular, and many employers showed an interest in supporting their staff in this area. One respondent even converted an underused storage space into a quiet room for employees to enjoy peaceful breaks, which let them come back to work feeling rested and ready to be productive. Finally, we heard a lot about flexible schedules and work arrangements to allow for better work-life balance. This included movement towards hiring a blended workforce, where workers are shared amongst several businesses that coordinate schedules. This means no single employer is responsible for an additional full-time salary, while helping ensure workers have full-time stable employment. This is an exciting opportunity that we'll explore more in depth during our final webinar in this series, A Blended Workforce. We'll be presenting that webinar on June 13th, and I hope you'll be able to join us. For now, though, let's take some time to talk about what motivates job seekers and employees. We'll start off by considering where they are in their lives, in addition to taking their lifestyle and personal needs into account. As you know, the tourism sector is incredibly diverse. About a third of tourism workers are youth between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. They are looking for a job in tourism and tend to have a higher turnover rate. They might look to tourism for their first job or to support them through a transition or to help them get their foot in the door in the labor market. In general terms, and very general terms, this demographic tends to want casual work, extra income, or to support other life goals like pursuing an education. This age group tends to work increased hours over the summer and on holidays, and particularly evenings and weekends throughout the year. When discussing compensation with younger workers, keep in mind that they are new to the labor force and may be unfamiliar with benefits and perks included in their compensation package. Take some time to teach them. This is building a relationship with them, particularly about the intangible benefits or the perks that they might take for granted, like free employee meals or a subsidized bus pass. While younger workers will see that these are unique and attractive offers that will make their lives easier and reduce their expenses, they may not have the experience to know that they also set you apart as an attractive employer. Now, the majority of the tourism workforce is older. About 2/3 of our employees are between the ages of 25 and 65 years of age. And they include, but are not limited to, obviously, entrepreneurs and professionals who have deliberately chosen a long-term career in tourism, and they pursue a wide range of occupations within the sector. With this group, it helps to focus on training and development opportunities with a clear path for advancement. They want to see that there's room to grow. As well, flexible hours mean a lot to this demographic because they're often in a life stage with caregiving responsibilities. They may be raising children or they may be caring for aging parents. Recently, Tourism HR Canada took a look at the types of workers our sector employs and saw an opportunity to dive deeper and to explore motivations to a finer degree. Our research led us to develop 5 worker archetypes that we're calling adventurers, first jobbers, new Canadians, mature workers, and second acts. Understanding what drives each of these 5 archetypes will help you to better target your total compensation package to the demographics that you would like to attract. It's important to note that these 5 archetypes are not exhaustive and nor are they exclusive. You may find some employees don't fit easily into any of these categories, or some employees match 1 or 2 different categories, and others that don't seem to align at all. This model is not meant to completely capture the diversity of the tourism workforce. Rather, the intent of these archetypes is to guide you in your decision-making process with respect to your compensation packages. So the first we'll discuss today are the adventurers. The people in this group tend to be young, often students, and may also include international talent experiencing Canada on a working holiday visa. Adventurers are looking for a job that supports their lifestyle. They prioritize variety, fun, and social experiences. This group wants flexible hours that let them have the work-life balance they crave. They are likely to prefer short-term perks like ski passes and accommodations over more traditional long-term benefits like health insurance or RRSP contributions. And these slides that you're looking at now are general descriptors, snapshots if you like. In the left column, you'll find some broad observations on the profile and the characteristics of the group we're calling adventurers. In the right column, you'll see some examples of how to link this archetype to HR practices and to tourism jobs. Next up are the first jobbers. Like the adventurers, this group tends to be young, inexperienced, and they aren't really sure what they want to do with their lives. They may not think of tourism as a potential career path, and this is where professional development and mentoring can show them the opportunities available in the sector. First jobbers want to gain skills that they can put on their resume and often start out in frontline jobs in customer service or in administrative support jobs. They tend to want a fun workplace and are interested in a mix of traditional and lifestyle benefits. Recent graduates may be more interested in getting help paying off their student loans than they would be in having matched RRSP contributions. So there's room to be creative here in putting together a compensation package that will appeal to this demographic. The next group, new Canadians, covers a pretty diverse group of people from a range of different cultural backgrounds and experiences. Nevertheless, there are some commonalities that can help you think about how to attract and retain new Canadians to your business. This group is more likely to see tourism as an opportunity, and they are open to the idea of long-term careers in the sectors. They're probably a lot less jaded about the sector than many other Canadians. Many new Canadians are eager to gain skills that will lead to job security and growth. In particular, newly arrived adults want a stable workplace that offers recognition for their prior experience and for the qualifications they earned in their country of origin. New Canadians of all age tend to gravitate towards a welcoming workplace that values diverse cultures. They want fair compensation, professional development opportunities, and a supportive work environment. When developing and discussing compensation with this demographic, keep in mind that workers may be unfamiliar with Canadian human resource practices. Try to anticipate their questions and be proactive in answering them. Let's say your business employs frontline workers who will receive tips. In this case, you want to explain how tipping works in your establishment. For example, are tips paid directly by the guests to the employee, or are tips pooled together and distributed equally among the entire team? Next up, we have the mature workers who are at a point in their lives where priorities are changing in their personal, family, and financial lives. They're looking for meaningful work that's challenging and has a purpose. Mature workers are seeking competitive and comprehensive compensation package and a flexible schedule that allows them to accommodate their personal obligations. They may also be interested in retirement packages, access to financial planning tools, and job security. Although some younger mature workers who are just starting to pivot their lives towards something more adult or more grown up may not know exactly what they're looking for, so they may need some support in finding a good fit. As an employer, this gives you a chance to give some mentoring support as well. Finally, the second act, who are generally coming to tourism after a career in another sector. They may be changing careers, taking on a second job, or seeking retirement income. Second acts have valuable skills and practical abilities that directly benefit the businesses they work for. They're often attracted to work that lets them give back and help others, and are likely to prioritize a workplace culture that is aligned with their values. When designing a compensation package for this group, the key word is customized. Second acts appreciate tailored work arrangements and benefits, as well as personalized professional development plans and supports. People who are building a second career will be motivated by different factors than those who are retired and looking for a bit of extra cash and something to do. So now that we understand some of the different demographic groups, how do we put everything together to create total compensation packages that attract workers and set tourism apart as a desirable employment destination? Acknowledging the diverse lifestyle needs and interests of job seekers can help you imagine and understand how to meet your employees where they are in their lives. It can also help you and your employees recognize the many ways that ambitions can be realized through a career in tourism, and highlight good matches between skills and job opportunities. The bottom line, employers that tailor their messages and job offers can attract and retain the workers they need. It's about being open to the skills the workers bring to the job and tailoring the work to each candidate that walks in your door. This worker-centric approach can do a lot to cement employee loyalty and can even lead to the development of new products or services that you haven't been able to offer in the past. But if you don't offer tailored job and compensation packages, people will simply go elsewhere. You'll note that I use the plural for compensation packages rather than one uniform package that you'll offer to all workers. When you offer this kind of personalized benefit plan, you're letting employees choose their benefits based on their specific needs and situations. You can offer each employee their base pay and a list of possible perks and benefits, and the employee can then choose from this list to customize what they want out of the job. Over time, their needs may change, so having policies in place to regularly review perks and benefits and to adjust them as needed is useful for long-term retention. If you're concerned about being able to afford to offer these kinds of perks and benefits to your staff, consider pooling together with other small businesses in your town or region. There are a lot of different strategies you can consider in making decisions around total compensation. If you run a local restaurant, you may be able to partner with a local attraction to offer reciprocal perks. Your staff get a discount at the attraction, and their staff get a discount at your restaurant. You can also pool resources together to buy a more affordable insurance package. And there are businesses and organizations out there who coordinate exactly this kind of arrangement. Get in touch with your provincial and national associations who can connect you with employee benefit services that work specifically with tourism business operators. You can also reach out to your local Chamber of Commerce, which may offer group insurance plans to small and medium-sized businesses. Pulling everything together, I'd like to refer you to the Now Hiring Guide, which Tourism HR Canada published last year. The guide is full of tips and resources to help employers attract and retain workers. It's made up of 2 sections. The first offers 13 essential HR practices to attract, retain, and grow your workforce. The second part has 10 practical forms and checklists to help you tackle some key HR issues. The total compensation template illustrates how you can demonstrate the value of everything you offer your employees. Now, the template you see in the guide is only an example, and you can modify it to best reflect your business structure and what you're prepared and equipped to offer your employees. In the first 2 columns, you'll input what your business does, and in the value column, you'll calculate the value for each individual employee. If you don't see a particular benefit or perk on the template, you can add it to the list, and don't be shy about promoting the kinds of things that you offer. An adventurer or a first jobber would probably be thrilled to see that a perk of bussing tables at a ski chalet is getting a $700 annual ski pass for free. Or imagine how a mature worker would feel seeing that you offer free childcare or matching RRSP contributions. As well, when you walk your employees through this sheet, under total, explain to them that employee mandated indirect compensation refers to the things that all employers provide, such as paying CPP and EI premiums. Employer voluntary indirect compensation refers to the perks and benefits you as an individual business provide. This is where you can set yourself apart from other businesses. Employer voluntary indirect compensation is money in the worker's pocket. For example, if an employee gets a free meal for every 8-hour shift they work, that's a meal they're not paying for themselves. Over a week or over a month, that can add up pretty substantially. So let's walk through an example to help you visualize how you might complete this form. What you see on the screen is the actual template, and I've made a few changes, just as you can do, to reflect the business example I'm going to walk through. The form is just that, a good template, and it will spark ideas that you can work with or change. Imagine that I run a remote fishing lodge in Northern Ontario, and I'm looking to attract adventurers and new Canadians to come work for me. I'm offering a seasonal position with full-time hours to candidates with a salary of around $150 a day. That amounts to 110 days of work, or 5 days per week over 22 weeks, for a total of $16,500. I want to reward loyalty, so I'm also going to offer a $500 bonus to any employee who is returning to work for me for the season. Now you'll notice I'm just using the form to fill in the total value of each item. There's other detail that you can add or unpack, but we won't worry about that for the scenario because it's not really needed. So now let's consider benefits. Since my lodge is in a remote location, I'm going to provide room and board, which comes to a total of $93 a day for meals and $50 a day for accommodations, and that's based on 154 days. I'm also adding $17 a day to cover incidental costs, things that I'm providing to them, but that they would have to pay for if they were living off-site. All this comes to around $160 a day. Because I'm covering room and board 7 days of the week for 22 weeks, that's going to add an extra $24,640 to the total compensation package, but it's not actually going to cost me anywhere near that much. I know I want to attract newcomers to Canada, so I want to provide professional development opportunities, including language training and computer skills, but I also want my employees to be able to choose the training that they are most interested in. So I decide to offer $500 towards a training program that each employee can choose for themselves. This is on top of whatever in-house training I'm already offering to my employees. I also want to attract adventurers who are drawn to my rugged and remote location. So I talk to other tourism businesses in my area. I partner with an outdoor adventure touring company and offer every worker a 2-night guided kayak tour that is worth $450. And when a new parasailing company opened this spring, the owner and I agreed to offer my staff 1 parasailing adventure per season, which is worth $75. But remember, this is the value to the employee, not the cost to me. By reciprocal agreement with these other companies, I'm paying a heavily discounted rate for these products. My business is based in Ontario, and I'm a member of TIO, so I register my employees for health and dental coverage through their benefits provider. This is worth about 20% of each worker's salary, so about $30 per day. If they work 5 days a week for 22 weeks between May 1st and September 30th, the value of this benefit works out to an extra $3,300. Finally, if we calculate the total compensation package in this scenario, we have a base pay of about $16,500 for a full-time seasonal position, plus the $500 bonus for returning employees. The health and dental benefits come to $3,300, and the room and board is $24,640. Altogether, my professional development and outdoor adventure perks total $1,025 per employee. The benefits and perks for my staff total $28,965, which is nearly double their base pay. My employees won't have to pay for food or accommodations for 5 months, so their base pay will actually be close to their net income over those 22 weeks, depending on their hobbies. And this doesn't even include things like creating a welcoming workplace culture, valuing and recognizing employee contributions, and creating a supportive work environment. The bottom line is Canadian tourism operators need to have competitive compensation packages in this tight labor market to attract and retain skilled workers. Being explicit in your total compensation package can help prospective employees see the full value of what you're offering. Another business may be able to pay more per hour, but if they're not offering room and board, then the total value of your compensation package is higher overall. But if you can't show them the numbers to back up your claim, you may be underselling yourself as an employer. With the current labor shortage in the industry, job seekers have more options and are looking for positions that offer fair wages, benefits, and opportunities for advancement. Employers who offer competitive compensation packages will be able to stand out in a crowded job market and attract top talent. In addition, offering attractive compensation can lead to higher employee satisfaction and retention rates, which can save employers money in the long run by reducing turnover and recruitment costs. And that brings us to the Q&A portion of the webinar. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I know I speak very quickly. And I'm sure many of you have some questions, and I think there are some in the chat that Lenny will moderate. So this is an opportunity for us to have that conversation. I would also remind you not to forget to download your free copy of the Now Hiring Guide by visiting tourismhr.ca/nowhiring. So you can continue to submit your questions through the chat box or the Q&A feature located on the side of your screen. Our team is standing by, and together we'll do our best to answer your questions in the time we have left. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now so that I can see you, because I find that nicer, or at least you can see me. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Evan. As Evan said, please go ahead and put your questions either in the Q&A or in the chat. We did have a couple of questions that I can answer, which is yes, the full recording of the webinar, as well as a PDF of Evan's presentation, will be available on the Forward Motion page on the TIO website following, soon after we wrap this up today. But if you have any other questions for Evan, please go ahead and type them. I'm not seeing any yet, Evan, so.
I do have a tendency to speak a little bit too quickly sometimes. But,
you also covered quite a lot of material. It was very comprehensive. So maybe you've answered all of the questions and thoughts that people had.
That is possible.
We'll give it another minute.
Sure thing.
There are no dumb questions. Ask away. So we are going to have a question regarding seasonal employees and health benefits packages.
Okay. I will do my best to answer it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have it set up so that participants can, unmute and ask, which often is easier. So we do need you to type your question in, and I realize it takes a little bit longer. Okay, so the question is, for seasonal employees, would they only then be covered with their benefits during the on season? And then would those benefits, I guess, be discontinued and left to fend for themselves for the off season?
If they're only working for you for one season, then I would say generally yes. The benefits that they would get through employment with you would be restricted to that season that they're working for you. If you have people who work part-time through the year and then full-time during your peak season, as I know a lot of tourism operators will have part-time staff through the year who come in full-time for the summer or for the winter, depending on their season. That's something that can become an HR practice in your business, how you handle that. Many full-time positions are more eligible for perks and certainly financial benefits like insurance than part-time employees. Again, that's a decision that a business operator can make, what they can afford to offer. As I said, there are organizations out there who work to get good rates for small operators when they band together and join a large policy. So offering longer term perks and benefits might not be as expensive as operators may be worrying about. And the other thing I'll say about that is one of the models that some workers are shifting towards and that Tourism HR Canada thinks is a good direction to be going is this idea of the blended workforce, where you are perhaps sharing employees with another employer. So they'd be part-time for you and part-time for the other employer. And if you're entering into that kind of arrangement so that the employee is given full-time hours and a full-time salary, but no one business is responsible for hiring them full-time, then part of that arrangement would have to be an agreement around who is covering which part of the benefit package. So there's a lot of administrative and human resource legwork that needs to go into that kind of arrangement. But for a lot of employers, or a lot of employees, sorry, that can actually be a very attractive option, particularly if you live in an area that has a lot of seasonal attractions, like if you have a ski hill and you have a golf resort, the possibility of those two businesses hiring one person to work on each season to offer full-time year-round employment is a good approach to take. But again, a lot of this is going to depend on the specifics of your business. So I hope I've sort of answered your question. There's a lot of sort of things in that question, but yeah, it does come down to sort of the decision that the employer makes about how they want to offer what to whom, as it were.
Thanks, Evan, and thanks, Debbie, for your question. We have a couple more minutes for questions if anyone else has. Well, Evan, I can turn it back over to you. I know you have a little bit of wrap up for us.
Sure thing. If you're at all like me and you come to these webinars and you think of a question the minute after you disconnect, feel free to get in touch with me. My email address should be searchable on the Tourism HR Canada website. I think it's just ehazenberg@tourismhr.ca. If you have any questions you want to talk about on a more one-to-one basis, or that occur to you as soon as you disconnect from the meeting, that's my personal magic trick, is to forget about things until the day I leave. But I will quickly just share my screen again for the last couple of slides. Oop, that's not where I wanted to be. I want to be down here. Graceful as always. So thank you very much for the question that was asked, and in anticipation of any other questions that come up. And thank you very much for participating and for sharing your ideas with us, and for sharing your time with us as well. So as this webinar draws to a close, I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. I hope you found some useful tools that you can apply in your own businesses today. And if you have, please share what you've learned with your friends and colleagues, or send them the link to the webinar. As we said, it's going to be recorded and accessible after the fact. So the more people who see it, the better. And it will be available later this week, as I said, on the TAIO website. And you'll also be able to download the presentation, which will have the QR codes in it, if you are a QR code kind of person. And you can also watch the other webinars in the series there as well. So our next webinar will be recorded live on May 16th. So that is in 2 weeks, I believe. And that's going to cover how to attract, build, and retain Indigenous talent. We'll be presenting this webinar with our partners at TAIO, as well as with Indigenous Tourism Ontario and the Ontario Tourism Education Corporation. It's going to be a very exciting conversation, and I hope you'll be able to join us for that one as well. So one last big thank you to TAIO, who have been our partners on this webinar series. The webinar was brought to you by Tourism HR Canada's Discover Tourism initiative, and I do invite you to explore that. As I said, there are some really excellent resources available for business operators there. And for up-to-date labor market information, practical human resource development tools, and other useful resources, please visit Discover Tourism at www.tourismhr.ca/discover-tourism, or you can also just go through the Discover Tourism website directly at discovertourism.ca. So thank you again for joining me, and I hope we see you again on May 16th.